Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 8 o'clock here in the East Coast. I want to thank everybody for joining us again on Wednesday nights. Hopefully this camera angle is a little bit better. We have our gear on this evening representing the Vanderbilt Commodores in their number 7 preseason ranking. Go Doors, anchor down. So before we get started, and as people start to join with us a little bit, want to remind everyone a couple things. First of all, let's get some business out of the way. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram now. I did an Instagram live event last evening. It went over great. We had over 1,200 participants, and that went really well. We also obviously here on Facebook. The email, baseballprocess14, as in the number 14, at gmail.com. If you have any questions, you can submit them there to that email address. The other topic is on our Facebook page, make sure you check off notifications. So if and when anyone wants to know when I'm live, because I may start to do some more live events during the season, and this will let you know that I'm actually live speaking and answering questions. So tonight I'm going to cover a few brief topics that we talked about last week. Again, I do a lot of our videos that go on to YouTube, as well as I post them on Twitter, so you're able to go back and look at them. And people that did not see the live event, I get to get some emails and some responses via direct message, and then I take some time before we get started with our topic of the night and answer. And this week we're going to start from a really interesting one. It's from Toms River, New Jersey. William, who I've had some interactions with at various travel ball events, and his sons are becoming of age. And his question that he wrote was basically something that's very near and dear to my heart, that he received a letter in reference to his oldest son, who is 14 years old and is a freshman in high school. And the question is, recently received a letter from a company that we will not mention, stating that my son has been selected as a freshman All-American, and they are inviting him to participate in an event during Martin Luther King weekend, which was last weekend. And his question is, how would they know how good his son is? Where would they have seen him play? And how can they rank him, being from Toms River, New Jersey, and his son has not played on the travel ball circuit? Well, William, here's the answer to your question. The vast majority of parents receive these letters all the time. And the reason why they choose freshman All-Americans is the same reason why some of these ranking evaluation services, again, the name of a very prominent libation beer of choice up here in New England, they also offer free services to freshmen. And the reason is they know that this year they're going to get you involved in some capacity within their program, and then for the next 3 years and possibly beyond, you'll register with their newsletter, you'll attend their various showcases, and attend their various tournaments, in Bradenton, Florida, at Pirate City, etc. And those events cost several $1,000s to participate in for 1 week. Again, I want to let people realize that I tend to be more like a movie critic, a food critic, specifically and as it pertains to all things youth baseball. There is no one person that has all of the answers to everything pertaining to the sport. If they did, they'd be hired by the Yankees or the Red Sox or some high-profile organization like the Dodgers, and they'd be helping them win World Series after World Series. I simply come at this as, I'm a dad. I was a dad of a travel ball baseball player or two. I've made my share of mistakes, and what I try to do is give back to you as parents to let you know some of the pitfalls or potential pitfalls that you can avoid, things that may or may not be worth your time and or money. And also on that topic, I had another question again from William as it pertained to what I do and my services. And I let people know for the cost of a showcase, one showcase that you will pay to send your son to, that's what it costs for our services for one calendar year. Now, we work with boys for their whole high school career, but I try to tell parents what you're paying us and the service that we provide to you will save you that times 10 or 20. And again, I'm only offering experiences, so it's an educated opinion, and I can only give you what my personal feelings are, and as a parent, what worked for me and what I saw and things that I felt were beneficial and things that were helping and helpful towards my son's future within the game. So that being said, tonight's topic is travel baseball. And I can't tell, I probably received over 100 questions, all of them pretty much similar in nature, none of which is anything out of the ordinary. The biggest thing is that the number one question that we get asked, I give John from Worcester, he had sent me this a few days ago. When does travel ball begin? What's the age for travel baseball? So the first approach I take to that answer is this. Why do we need travel baseball? Okay, the simple answer is boys don't play enough baseball on their own anymore. I wish it was true that boys got on their bikes and rode to the ballpark. In fact, last evening I had a practice with an 11-year-old group. All boys were 11 years old. And I kind of miss those days. I mean, my boys have long since passed that, and I don't see any grandchildren on the horizon yet. But I do, when I interact with boys that age, I try to get them to have some fun, and we create games and the line drive contests and so forth. But I ask them, do you guys play in your backyard? Do you play at the ballparks? God forbid we called it Sandlot. I'd sound like I was an old geezer, as if I'm not already. And do you play in your school? Do you play pickup wiffle ball? The answer, no. We've become so accustomed to lessons, which lead to travel ball, which lead to high school, and then we're all going to play in college. Okay, so travel baseball. It's not necessary, in my opinion, at 7, 8, 9, and even 10 years old. Now, a lot of these big mega organizations, they start travel ball, and there's a reason why they want your son, regardless of ability, to go year by year by year by year. I was never a proponent of that. If my boys exhibited skill sets, I didn't want them playing with 10-year-olds if I thought they could play with 12-year-olds. What Little League does is Little League is 9 to 12 years old. I made my boys, or asked or requested my boys, made the dad decision. My sons played minor baseball or T-baseball at 5 through 6, minor league baseball with regard to Little League, 7, 8, and 9. And both my boys were pretty good at 9 years old. They knew how to catch. They knew how to swing. They played a lot of baseball and practiced a lot of baseball. But my point is they did everything kind of based on their ability levels after that point. At 10, they played Little League, 10, 11, and 12. They had fun. They played with their friends. They played with their local boys in their school. They played against other area towns or surrounding towns, boys they competed with in Pop Warner and basketball and hockey and so forth. And there's something to be said for those ages about recognizing that it's youth baseball. It shouldn't be about business. It shouldn't be about loading up your car and jumping in and going to try and, drive 2 hours to try and play ball. At 12 years old, you will have a good idea whether your son truly wants to compete, practice, prepare, and compete at an aggressive level. Because one of the number one things that travel ball does is it brings failure to your son, which is a great thing, which is one of the number one things in topics that you should be thinking about when it comes to travel baseball. Don't look for a team that's going to make your son the starting shortstop and bat third and be the star, and you're basically playing lower level competition. That's not why you're playing travel baseball. If you are, that's going to be an issue at some point. The bigger part of this is that travel baseball is going to allow you to compete against higher level players. Their skill sets are going to be higher, challenging your son, which is what we're ultimately getting at, and allowing him to learn through failure. Now, a lot of parents look at me and say, well, why are we talking about failure? Well, you do not realize how difficult it is to be a pitcher standing on a mound and having someone hit a home run. And while that boy is running around the bases, the parents are clapping, the other dugout's exploding. Usually there's going to be some form of, chit chat going on. And the boys have to learn poise and composure. And I used to tell both my boys to write under their brim of their hat. That's why you'll see pictures of Tyler and Kyle when they were younger looking into their hats. Poise and composure. It's very important for boys to learn that at a very young age. You can't be too high, you can't be too low. So travel baseball, John, the answer to your initial question is right around 12 or 13 years old. That's when we really want to start to look into travel ball, what I call travel baseball. Now, the next part of John's question pertained to when's the best time to make that break from your local leagues to kind of the more challenging leagues. And what kind of experiences do you have with that? The bigger part of that is that most local friends are going to give you some pushback early. What are you not? You're too good for us. You don't want to play with your friends. There's nothing that you can do with that team that you can't do here. It comes from adults. It comes from coaches. It comes from their friends. But at the end of the day, if they're going to play and want to play baseball at a higher level, now most boys will start to know that at about 12 or 13, then they're going to have to look for that better competition, and sometimes there's a great deal of travel involved. And on that note, I have drank the Kool-Aid and driven thousands of miles to play baseball or have my son participate in baseball events. Pat from Leominster asks, what's the difference between your local AAU programs or regional programs and the national programs? To be quite honest with you, the local programs have become, in my opinion, and even back in the days of my youngest son, Tyler, they are more of an extension of the Little League parents that want to form their own little all-star team. And Jimmy and Johnny are going to play shortstop, or this one's going to be my pitcher, etc. The national teams were really kind of founded on the caliber of talent that they were going to acquire and put on their teams, and then the teams they were going to play against. And so that led to a lot of traveling, which really led to the perfect game, kind of program coming of age, because at that point they knew teams were going to travel to one specific location, and then in turn college coaches were going to come to watch them play, and thus the travel ball world really was, born out of that. But you want to know two things before you seek out a national program. One, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with your son. You need to know that he exhibits a current skill set or a projectable skill set that's going to allow him to benefit from playing at that level. Local travel ball, in my opinion, is for those boys that have a passion for the game, that don't have a big desire to kind of go outside their geographical area, want to compete on what I call a quasi-local level, meaning a regional level, and that's good for them. It allows them to play a lot of games. You'll see teams that'll say, we're 84-2 this year, and we got 3 rings and a bandana with the championship logo, and they gave us a trophy the size of the Empire State Building because we won a 10U event. That's local travel AAU baseball, what I call AAU baseball. And it's just, when I was a kid, it was either junior Little League or senior Little League or Little League or even Babe Ruth, to be honest with you. If you think about it, for the most part, those 4 groups are slowly being replaced, if they haven't already, as has American Legion baseball, with local travel baseball. And everybody wants to tell you how many championships they won and how many great players they've had. But in reality, it's the national circuit, for lack of a better term, that you really are looking to be a part of. Now, on that note, I must tell you, it's not the name of the jersey that will be put on your son's chest. It's your son in the jersey that will determine if he's going to play in college. I don't care, and there are plenty of teams that will promote these guys played for us, and now they're playing here, and this is their first-round draft picks, and they're college players, and all of this kind of great stuff. Great. It was the players themselves that really made that organization. And what separates those organizations is coaching. You want to really fully understand who's going to be coaching your son. It's one thing to play for the team, the great organization, but are you on their national team? Are you on a prospect team? Are you on a blue team, a black team, a diamond team, a platinum team? All those other teams, may benefit your son because they give him more playing opportunity, but who's coaching? Coaching is key. I can tell you as it relates to Tyler, he had wonderful pitching coaches. And I went to great extremes to really do my homework on who was going to be coaching my boys. Because no matter how much baseball I knew or thought I knew, I was still dad. So if I would say something to either of the boys, I would get a head shake or a, yeah, dad, whatever response. So I had to make sure the coaches were consistent with what I felt was proper as far as learning the game was concerned, but also at the same time, the correct temperament. Okay, are these guys, do they have the right temperament? What kind of info and how do they disseminate their information? You can be a great player, a great college player, a professional player. Ted Williams didn't exactly hit a home run when he was a manager. A lot of great players have a difficult time disseminating and teaching information. So you really want to know who's teaching your son. That's critical. The next part of this is what level of competition will your son be playing at? I had a wonderful opportunity while I lived in Louisiana. I worked with a lot of boys. I could rattle them all off. One in particular, or two in particular, one would be Daniel Cabrera. Mr. Lenny Cabrera and Miss Nancy Cabrera had the wonderful opportunity to kind of meet them when Daniel was in the 8th grade. And boy, you could just see that this young man had a passion, a true passion for the game. But he also has a tremendous intellect and a burning desire to be successful. And I went to them and told them that I really thought that Daniel needed to play at a very aggressive level. Now, their son-in-law was his head coach in high school. He was only in the 8th grade and hadn't played varsity baseball yet. A lot of the local people kind of made some comments, too young, dollar and a dream, all this kind of stuff. You're really trying to put the cart before the horse. Well, here's the bigger part of travel ball. It's like dominoes. Once one falls, the rest kind of fall into line. So, this was in the fall of, I believe, 2012 or 13. We had Daniel go to an event as an 8th grader and be part of a national travel team called GBG Marucci. It's now called GBG Marucci. It was GBG or Garcia Parra Brother Baseball. And he caught the eye of that organization while he was at an event. And subsequently, the following spring, played for him out in an event in Arizona, which led to Team USA 15-year-old baseball, which led to countless other events over the years. And now Daniel's a senior in high school, going to LSU, and was being recruited as an 8th and 9th grader. So my point is sometimes information, there's a little bit of trust involved. Thankfully, both Mr. Lenny and Miss Nancy, trusted me on that aspect of things. And Daniel was a worker bee, so if your son's not a worker bee, don't worry about it now. He doesn't have, you don't have to concern yourself if it's not clicking yet. It could click in another year or two, but once that worker bee mentality comes in, you want to challenge your son. The next aspect of travel ball is not all travel ball organizations are the same. For me personally, I feel that there are a select few events that are worth traveling to, that are worth participating in. And if those events are part of your travel ball organization's schedule, either summer or fall, then that's a good opportunity for your son. And so you want to be, when your son is 13 or 14, you want to be where the college coaches are. And you want college coaches to provide you feedback. And college coaches will provide feedback to those coaches of your travel ball organization when they see something positive or potentially negative. And you want to know those things early rather than later. Can't tell you how many parents I run run into. Their sons are seniors in high school. They were taking the path that has been beaten by so many people previous to them, their grandfathers, their fathers, their friends, and they seek out local advice, and everybody says, just stick around here. If you're good enough, they'll find you. And then they get to be juniors and seniors in high school, and there's no room at the inn, and nobody's recruiting them, and now what? Where do we go? And they feel like they're under pressure. But travel baseball at a young age does two things. One, it brings to light the caliber and the quality of the organization or the caliber of players that your son is going to face, whether it's in high school or in college. It also allows them to get into a situation where their routine, the travel, living in hotel, I can't tell you how many times in the summer, living it as a parent, where from, say, the second week in June when the school would get out here in the Northeast till the second week in August when football season would start, myself and Tyler were basically gone every summer. And, Kyle did a few events, but, inevitably we'd get to the end of July and I'd hear Tyler say, Dad, I didn't get to go to the beach this summer. And as a dad, there's kind of this fine line. Am I doing too much? But at the same time, I would ask him, are you having fun? And if he had a smile on his face and he said, you better believe it, we were doing the right thing. So, you always want to take that kind of temperature check, make sure we're not pushing the pedal to the metal too hard. But these travel ball routines are pretty much in line with college baseball. And ultimately, you should be preparing your son to be ready to compete during the fall of his freshman year. Because if you're not, we're doing him a disservice. Because freshman fall is really aggressive and it's very, very serious. So once they learn that routine where I'm traveling, I'm playing, I'm getting a little tired, I have to take care of my body, I have to eat properly, I have to get good rest, sleep, you're developing relationships with people from all over the country at the same time. Which I thought was an integral part of both of my boys' childhood. So how do you choose the right travel ball team? What's the golden answer to that question? And in my opinion, you need to have a geographical tolerance. You have to know what events they're going to be attending. Is it something that you can drive to? Is it something that other people in your area may be participating and your son can stay with them? A lot of teams have host families for the summer. I know I've done that in the past and had tremendous success. So those are the types of things that you really want to know are going on with your travel team. Another question that just came in from Felix Bergeron. How can I know when the next event or where the events are near me? There's a lot of great websites now where you can go online and kind of get an idea. Perfect Game has all of their tournament schedules online. Dynamic World Series, Dynamic Baseball. You have East Coast Baseball. You have, there's all kinds of websites that will tell you all the tournaments. If you go online and Google baseball tournaments 14U New England, you'll get a great deal of information on that. So I always recommend, if you want something near you, Google baseball tournaments near me, and you'll get a multitude of them, in your response. Scotty Boscia, my high school buddy, age, just covered that a little bit earlier, but travel baseball is best when you can meet up or sync up your son's physical athletic ability at, say, 11, 12, 13 years old, and his desire to want to play at a more aggressive level. Little League locally, I'm not talking about All-Stars in Little League. I'm talking about, Little League as a whole was so that the kids in the neighborhood or your area of your city or town, would put you all together and your buddies were playing against each other, and it would be neighborhood against neighborhood in some cases. And now we've gotten away from that. So, and much to my dismay, I really enjoy the Little League model and a big advocate of that because of the 45 feet closed baseball, et cetera. That's a story for another day. But travel baseball, you need to make sure that your son has a true understanding of the amount of time that it's going to take, because you're going to be playing countless numbers of doubleheaders on Saturdays and Sundays. So you're looking at 4 games, during a weekend, possibly 5. So some boys might not be ready for that. I find that 12 and 13, they're mentally and physically prepared for that. Scott, you bring up one more point that I'm going to talk about real quick because I had this happen with me with a boy that I'm working with this week. College coaches absolutely love, like, adore, want multiple sport athletes. They do not want single sport athletes. If you as a parent are focusing all this time on lessons and all this time on critiquing your son and not letting him play the game, fall down, strike out, make an error, all this stuff, you're doing yourself a terrible disservice, and more importantly, you're not helping your son, because by the time that your son is prepared to go to college, he is going to face adversity. And you need those sports like football and basketball, hockey, soccer, etc. They teach you different aspects and elements to becoming a leader and becoming an athlete. So definitely make sure that you're doing that for your son. The other part of travel ball that I really want to explain to you is this. The national programs are going to play the best players. And you have to be prepared that if your son is a shortstop, and he might not be getting the job done, and they're playing in a big tournament, and I'm talking more about the ages of like 14 through 17 here, they may fly somebody in, and suddenly your son is not the starting shortstop anymore. Because it's all about winning for a lot of those programs. It's not so much about developing. And so again, it goes back to who's coaching my son. What are their priorities? What events are we participating in? 4,000, 5,000, geez, I know teams that charge $8,000. What are we getting for that money? Yeah, we get to practice in a bubble. Yeah, we practice every Saturday at 10 o'clock at night. Or Saturday morning at 7 a.m. I used to have a coach screaming at me because my son couldn't play in there. They couldn't practice. He couldn't practice because he had basketball. And sometimes you have to let these coaches know, hey, I'm not going to wake my son up at 5 a.m. for him to practice at 7 a.m. so that he can come home at 9 a.m. and play basketball until noon or 1 o'clock. I'm not going to do that. So a lot of travel teams have a lot of rules. So know the rules, know the coaches, know the schedule, know the commitment, the level of commitment, know the practice schedule. You really want to make sure you know what you're putting your son, what you're getting your son involved with, because a lot of it, the teams that we played with when Tyler was 14, 15, and 16, we didn't practice with them. We, did our own practices, and then when the time came, the season started, we went down and we played in those events. Travel baseball, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for a quality schedule. We're looking for quality coaches. We want to surround him with players that are better, smarter, bigger, faster, stronger. We want to see if he rises up. Don't put him on a team and make sure he's the three-hole hitter, he's the star. If he works out to be that guy and he becomes a leader and he's a great player, great. College coaches are going to gravitate to him. College coaches are going to begin to recruit your son 13, 14, and 15 years old. And where they see your son is at the national travel ball level, the circuit. Atlanta, Georgia, or Marietta, now Lake Point. BCS, things in Fort Myers, Jupiter, Florida, both summer and fall. Music City Classic, a few dynamic World Series events throughout the Carolinas. Up in Northborough, Massachusetts now, they're becoming very prominent with a lot of the New England and the Ivy League coaches. And lastly, the final thing I want to make sure that every parent understands is this. Please have the proper understanding of your son's skill sets. Don't live in the bubble of your backyard. I actually wanted to venture out so that I could see if both my boys had the ability. Because I looked at it through a different set of glasses. No matter how much I want to trust my baseball instincts, but I want to make sure that we are not overinflating. There's a lot of boys that'll go to not only travel ball events, but camps and clinics and showcases. They're not ready for those. They don't have the skill sets. And you stand out. And some boys will get intimidated and they'll back up. And they may never come back to the game. And it's a game that must be played by kids, by boys, not parents, not adults screaming and yelling. Umpires don't win and lose games. You must let the boys play the game at whatever level they feel that they are being challenged at. That is the key. So I want to say thank you to everybody from tonight. Next week, our topic is going to be two things: Gidgets, gadgets, and lessons. Okay, so I get a lot of people that write me about what's the best arm sleeve and icing and hit sticks and this gadget and this Gidget. You know, and they bring them to lessons, and I look at them and I just shake my head. And at the end of the day, your son needs a broomstick. He needs probably a golf ball or a tennis ball. He needs a wall, and we can do a lot of things with those things to make your son better. So next week, that's what we'll cover. In the meantime, when you have questions, again, baseballprocess14@gmail.com. Fire off the emails. We have Instagram. Follow, because I'm going to do some live Instagram events. We have Twitter, Baseball Process, Twitter, Baseball Process, Instagram, and obviously Facebook Live. I share these videos on YouTube, so if people miss tonight's event, they can go there. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody. Keep sending the questions in. If you have any questions or concerns, email me. I'm starting to work with new players now. Happy to take a look at your son via video or come and watch him play live. Thank you to everybody, and I look forward to next week.